This is a video to tell you the pathways of working here in Australia as a consultant radiologist, especially for the doctors who are working as specialist or consultant in Pakistan, India, Middle East or the UK, and they have got postgraduate qualifications like FCPS, MD or FRCR, plus they've completed all of their training components in India, Pakistan and in the UK or any other country that they're coming from. But before I do that, I would like to talk a little bit about where I am. Today is the 50th birthday of Sydney Opera House. When the Sydney Opera House was planned, the design committee put out a competition throughout the world that who is going to design Sydney Opera House, and this competition was won by the Danish architect. And the plan of completion of this project was 4 years, but it took 14 years to complete. So you've now decided that you need to apply for the specialist assessment. Now there are two pathways for a specialist assessment. Number one pathway is basic specialist recognition, and number two pathway is area of need specialist assessment. So let's talk about the eligibility to come and work as a specialist radiologist here. Now, as per the Royal Australian New Zealand College of Radiologists, the basic eligibility to come and work as a specialist is your postgraduate qualification, which is FCPS, FRCR, or in India, MD Radiology, plus the training component. Now, you've got to be careful here because they compare your training to that of an Australian trained radiologist. So you need to have at least 4 years worth of training, which should be not just in one place, but generalized training across multiple areas and multiple modalities of imaging. So you should be trained in X-rays, ultrasound, CT scans and MRI scans to be a good diagnostic radiologist. So 4 years of training plus a postgraduate qualification like FCPS, MD, FRCR, or wherever country which you are applying from, whichever country that you're applying from, you've got a postgraduate qualification in radiology from there. Plus, if you want to really stand a good chance, which I've seen with number of radiology applicants getting their substantial and partial comparability outcomes, is that they are working as a consultant for at least a period of 3 years. So do regard that as a good and plus point. The bare minimum could be 2 years, but at least 3 years, I think you really stand a very good chance. Now let's talk about the steps of the application process. Now I have divided steps into 4 key steps. Number one step, like with any other accreditation process, is lodging your application with ECFMG EPICS verification process, where you verify your MBBS and postgraduate qualification, which could be FCPS, MD, FRCR, or whatever the postgraduate qualification from your own country is. You pay the EPICS fee, whatever it might be, plus you also make an AMC or Australian Medical Council portfolio, which is the second part of the same process. And there you have to link up. Once the ECFMG EPICS details are released, they will release the details to AMC portfolio, and the College of Radiologists here in Australia will utilize that AMC portfolio's details to assess your application further. So number two step is an application process. Now application form is very straightforward, and it just needs to detail your personal identification, your date of birth, address and so forth, plus your basic qualification like MBBS and your specialist qualification, plus your training time and whatever it might be. It's all very self-explanatory. You don't have to provide a lot of details in the application form. Now with the application form, you have to attach certain documents, and there's a list of documents, but basically they are CV, they are your MBBS degree, your postgraduate qualification certificate or degree or diploma, plus if there's any completion certificate like completion of certificate of specialist training, CCST or CCT, or it could be a certificate of completion of whatever training that you've done in radiology in your own home country, your passport, your other identification document, your current registration license in your own home country, and that's about it really. The next step is actually paying the fee. Now the current fee is about 10,000 Australian dollars. Now people may think it's a huge fee, but honestly, if you look at the income of the radiologist, this fee is not really meant to be that bad. The next part is the interview. Now, interview is conducted by two fellow radiologists from the Australian New Zealand College of Radiology. They are trained assessor, and they will go through your application form, go through your CV, and will ask you basic question about your primary medical qualifications, your specialist medical qualifications, your training time, and clarify any of the steps that they need to clarify. And the college website says that it would also be an opportunity to understand if you've got any other diagnostic or procedural skills. Plus, on top of that, if you need to ask them any question about the application process. Now, most of the interviews are conducted via Zoom. Now, what happens after you've submitted your application form? So the comparability outcome could be either substantial comparability, and you have to do upskilling for about 12 months, partial comparability, 24 months upskilling, or 12 months of upskilling, which could be either in a hospital side or it could be in one of the large private radiology practices. Let's go and get some coffee because it is a good day to have a coffee. What do you do after your application has been assessed as comparable? Well, you basically go and apply for jobs. And where do you apply for jobs? The most common websites where the jobs are available are either the state websites, so New South Wales Health, Victoria Health, Queensland Health, Western Australia Health, Tasmania Health, Northern Territory Health. All of the states have got their own website. The second way of applying for a job is to go through locum agencies, and there are a number of different locum agencies. I wouldn't like to recommend one over the other. The third way is to search it up yourself on some of the websites. So one of the most common websites is seek.com.au. Now, let's talk a little bit about the area of need and the moratorium. So what is an area of need? Now, area of need is an area in Australia, mostly in region, where there's a definite and most severe shortage of specialists. And there could be specialist radiologists, cardiologists, surgeons, emergency physician, ICU, whatever it might be. The good thing is that because radiology is such a field that you cannot have a rural place radiology, you have to be near a hospital. So most of these area of need position could be in a place in major town, like linked closely to the hospital. Area of need assessment interviews are a little bit more in depth, and there might be a clinical component in terms of assessment of radiology images as well. Now, what about the moratorium law? Lots of people ask me about the moratorium. As per Australian laws, every international medical graduate, even myself, had to go through the period of moratorium. That is that you're not allowed to work in the major urban centres here in Australia for the period of 10 years after you've been registered for the first time here in Australia. Now, this is not a major hassle at all, even though it's applicable to everyone, the GP, the specialist, the junior medical officer, the radiologist, everyone. But again, for radiology, because the deficiency is such that you can work in the major towns and you can work in the major hospitals. I was trained in emergency medicine. All of my training was done in St. George Hospital in Sydney. Despite the fact that I had to abide by the moratorium, my moratorium did not kick in, or it really did not kick in because of the deficiencies in the major urban centers. Same goes for the radiologists. I've known a number of radiologists who are actually working here in the major urban centers. They're also working in region center or mixing and matching their work. So even though the moratorium is for 10 years, to be able to work as an independent specialist, this 10 years can be in a combination of both urban and rural settings. So just keep that in mind, moratorium is not a big deal. How hard is it to get the upskilling job? Now, as a rule of thumb, radiology is a competitive specialty. So if you're applying for jobs in hospital, you'll be competing against the Australian radiology trainees or radiology specialists. So the hospital jobs are always going to be very competitive. However, as I said, the area of need positions plus the positions in the region operated by the large private practices in radiology, they are relatively easier to obtain. That's what I've seen most of the IMGs getting their first medical jobs in the area of needs, plus the jobs in the region operated by the large private radiology practices. And there are lots of private radiology practices now operating in that segments. They are actually so big that they're servicing public hospital with their imaging, diagnostic procedures and all of that. I would suggest that this is a good opportunity if you're working as a senior radiologist in India, Pakistan, Middle East, UK. It's good time to come and apply for the accreditation process through the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Radiologists. You can be found to be substantially comparable if you're from the UK, or partially comparable with only 12 months or up to 24 months of upskilling if you're coming from India and Pakistan post FCPS and MD in radiology. The jobs, even though they are competitive, that mostly in a hospital settings, they're mostly jobs available in area of need and in the regions, and there are plenty of jobs provided you're searching for jobs smartly. It is a full-time job to look for a job, so dedicate 3 months to 6 months to find for your first job. Lastly, as I said, radiology is, even though it's very competitive, it's a hugely lucrative field here in Australia. It pays very well. The average salary of a radiologist is between $400,000 to $450,000, but I've seen radiologists earning anything between $700,000 to up to $1 million annually. If you need assistance with that pathway, then I might be able to help you with your application process, with your interview, and good luck with that. I hope you like this video. Please subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you up in the next video.